Good evening, everybody. How is everyone? I'm going to read some poems and talk to you. And if you know my work, it may be difficult to tell the difference when I'm doing one and when I'm doing the other. That's a new poem I just started. As Mike mentioned, I've got 6 poems that I'm planning to read first, and then if you have a question you want to ask me, tweet it to me. Actually, you don't even have to tweet it to me as long as you use the hashtag AskTaylorM. Don't use AskTaylor. Those are the hashtags you can use. Oh, I'm particularly interested in questions from people who are not in the audience. I know there's a hashtag #NotAtQ, but that's something slightly different for resources that are not here. But if you are watching this on the stream and you have a question for me and you have room, go ahead and include #NotAtQ. It's important to say AskTaylorM, or else your question may get answered by the person who took Ask Taylor. This first poem is called Undivided Attention. What all teachers want and few of us ever get. A grand piano, wrapped up in quilted pads by the movers, tied up with canvas straps like classical music's birthday gift to the criminally insane, is gently nudged out an 8th floor window without its legs and lowered down onto a flatbed truck by a long-necked crane. It is a piano getting pushed out of a window, 8 stories up, going over at the edge of falling, the edge of tears, the edge of 8 stories up, going over. It's a piano getting pushed out of a window and lowered down onto a flatbed truck by a long-necked crane, and I'm trying to teach math in a building across the street. Who can teach with such lessons to be learned? All the greatest common factors are delivered by long-necked cranes or flatbed trucks, or they come through everything, even air, like snow. See, snow falls for the first time every year, and every year my students rush to the window, as if snow were more interesting than math, which in Palm Springs, it is. So please, let me teach like a Steinway, spinning slowly in April air, so almost falling, so hinderingly dangling from the neck of the mover's crane, so on the edge of losing everything. Let me teach like the new snow falling. Is that your mic that's still on, Mike?
Yeah, I just in the middle of your keynote.
No, it's okay. I like hearing you go.
Thought I'd off my opinion midway through. I was going to go back here and ask him to turn it off, but if you like it, I could just leave it on. It's okay.
Just if you need to go to the bathroom, turn it off. Sunday nights, I lie in bed awake, as all teachers do, and wait for sleep to come, as though sleep were the last student in my class to arrive. My grading is done, my lesson plans are in order, and still sleep wanders the hallways like middle school band practice. I'm a teacher, that's what we do. We're miracle workers. Like a builder builds, or a sculptor sculpts, a preacher preaches, and a teacher teaches. We are experts in the art of explanation. I know the difference between the questions to answer and the questions to ask. That's an excellent question. What do you think? If 2 boys are fighting, I break it up. But if 2 girls are fighting, I wait until it's over, and then I drag what's left to the nurse's office. I'm not your mother, I'm not your father, I'm not your jailer, I'm not your torturer, I'm not even your biggest fan in the whole wide world, even though sometimes I act like all of these things. I know you can do these things that I make you do. That's why I make you do them. I'm a teacher, and that's what we do. We're miracle workers. Once in a restaurant, when the waiter said, "Can I bring you anything else?" And I said, "No, thank you, just the check, please." And he said, "Oh, come on, how about a look at the dessert menu?" I knew I had become a teacher when I said, "What did I just say?" In the quiet hours of the dawn, I write my assignment sheets, and then I print them without spell checking them, because I'm a teacher, and teachers don't make spelling mistakes, do we? So as a matter of fact, the new school dress code will affect all members of the 5th, 6th, and 78th grades. And if you need an extension on your essays examining the pubic wars from a hysterical perspective, you may have only until January 331st. I always forget this poem at this point. You have only until January 331st. As I get older, this is happening more. I hope that won't be a problem for anybody. I like to lecture on love. I like to speak on responsibility. At the drop of a hat, I will talk about honor and integrity and the importance of telling the truth always. And when my students say, "Mr. Malley, are we going to be responsible for this?" I say, "If not you, then who? You think my generation's going to be responsible for this? We're the ones who got you into this mess. Now you are our only hope." And when they say, "What we meant, Mr. Malley, is are we going to be tested on this?" I say, "Every single day of your lives." Once, while a student of mine was digging in her backpack for a pen, I put on the corner of her desk a pen, but she didn't see me do it. So when I walked to the other side of the classroom and she raised her hand, still not seeing the pen that I had put on her desk, and said, "Mr. Malley, do you mind if I borrow a pen from you?" I went, She still didn't see it. You already possess everything you require to succeed, including a pen. Whoosh. Boing. For a second, she still did not see the pen that I had put on the corner of her desk, but said instead, "Mr. Malley, you are probably the weirdest teacher I have ever had. Could you please just loan me up?" Oh my goodness! You're a miracle worker. How did you do that? And I wanted to say all I did was give you what I knew you needed before you knew you needed it. So thank you for the compliment, but education is the miracle. I'm just the worker. I'm a teacher, and that's what we do. Thank you. Thank you. I was reminded of that poem. Last night at dinner, I went out with Mike and some of the Q staff, and Mike asked the busboy if he could have a glass of water. And the busboy said, "Like the one right in front of you?" And Mike was like, "Oh my goodness, that's the fastest service ever." I wanted to do that's my own version of Tibetan throat singing, which I absolutely love. I don't know whether I'm doing it right, but if anybody knows how to do it, here, let me try it again. I can sometimes get sort of like overtones. Thank you. Thank you very much. My wife is Jewish, and we are raising our son to be Jewish, although he's 2, so that just means going to the synagogue on Sunday for bagels and coffee, which is wonderful, and going to Shabbat there, and his mini minyan. But perhaps because they knew that that I'm in a mixed faith couple, they invited me to be on the synagogue new welcoming, what is it called? The welcoming committee. And at the very first meeting, we all went around and sort of explained why we were there. And I noticed that everybody had what they thought was a really important, glaring flaw in their own character. And it loomed largest only in our own eyes. So I wrote this poem called The Ways in Which We Feel We Don't Belong. It's new, it hasn't been published anywhere. At the synagogue meeting of the newly formed welcoming committee, we all proved true what we probably secretly already knew, that the ways in which we feel we do not belong only loom largest in our own eyes. Hence, one woman of a certain age feels singled out for being single and having no children here in this Brooklyn neighborhood where it's actually true. You cannot swing a bouquet of locally sourced organic kale without hitting somebody's child, whose name, by the way, is probably also locally sourced organic kale. And the well-groomed man in perfect tweed, the father of, for all I know, locally sourced organic kale, says that he and his husband never felt at home or even welcomed, even though the synagogue's website says all the right things about inclusion and acceptance and safe spaces. And then there's me, of course, the atheist, who thinks the story of the burning bush is actually a vestigial collective human memory from a time long ago when humans first learned how to conquer fire. No one? I thought this was fascinating, but the chosen people wanted no part of it. Anyway, there's a woman next to me who calls herself vaguely Christian, and she's in a mixed faith marriage, and she says she feels like a shiksa every time she sets foot inside the temple, which, by the way, she totally is, with her blonde hair and her eyes of Tiffany. Lastly sits the convert, he who chose to become a Jew, who fears judgment for knowing next to not a word of Hebrew. And so it goes with all of us. Deep inside each private heart, we can only see the ways in which we think we will always be apart. So, welcome to our spiritual community. You probably belong here even more than me. Thank you. It occurs to me that educators, this is my spiritual community right here. So if there were ever a place where I felt that I belong, it is here. I often tell the story about the 1990s band Blind Melon, whose best known song is called No Rain, which goes, and all I can do is read a book to stay awake. And that's something that I don't. And the video featured a chubby redheaded girl in a bee costume tap dancing for people all over the world, and nobody paid her any mind. And she finally, at the end of the video, finds in a field a community of adults wearing bee costumes and dancing and tap dancing, and she just has found her people. And that's when I am in front of teachers, I feel like I have found my community of tap dancing bee people. Thank you. One of us. This was from yesterday I was wandering around the conference center and they were getting ready. And at first I looked at it, I was like, wait, what? Here's a poem I was supposed to do in Anaheim last month. Was anybody in Anaheim? Woo! Here's a poem I forgot to do. That it was specifically requested, and I said, yes, I will do that, and then I didn't. It's called In My Middle School. In my middle school, there is no 7th grade. It's been replaced with a year of law school for 13-year-olds. Because that's really what they're good at anyway, arguing for justice. The students all wear black robes like little judges, and we study the history of jurisprudence and the chaos of democracy. The special guests to the classroom are lawyers and judges and police officers, too. There's a field trip to the county jail. Science has been renamed CSI. And it's all about splatter patterns, criminal forensic investigation. In English, we study rhetoric and argument and persuasion. The foreign language is basic Spanish for law enforcement officers, learning to translate the testimony of witnesses and taking depositions. And math is all about billing clients, timesheets, and settlements. In my middle school, there is no 6th grade. It's been replaced with a year of business school for 12-year-olds. Math is all about interest rates and spreadsheets. Car salesmen and hot dog street vendors are the weekly visitors. And history compares capitalism to communism throughout the ages. English is about writing business plans. And science has been renamed research and development. The foreign language for that year is obviously Chinese. In my middle school, there is no 8th grade. It's been replaced with a special mixture of medical school for 14-year-olds combined with an MFA in creative writing. And all the students wear white lab coats over black turtlenecks. Berets and stethoscopes are optional. Every morning, we take the temperature of each student as they enter the building, and then we squirt their hands with sanitizer. Later, we write about how best to nourish the human body and what it means to be alive and simply breathe. The whole year is one big science fair. The foreign language is Latin, gym is yoga, and at the end of the year, we visit the morgue. In my middle school, there is no 5th grade. It's been replaced with a special mix of many disciplines specifically designed to appeal to 11-year-olds. 1 part architecture school mixed with 2 parts music conservatory, blended with international affairs and public policy in one large classroom. We need together a culinary school, a drama school, hostage negotiation classes, cosmetology, and a school of social work. Instead of telling students that they can be anything they want to be in the whole wide world, we bring them the world and we lay it at their feet. We say, there is no shortage of ways in which the world is desperate to be saved. Can you help us? Can you fix this? Can you love the work that must be done? Thank you. After this next poem, I'm going to do what teachers make, the poem. Duh. No, the dance. What teachers make is online. There are probably 100 versions of me and other people doing what teachers make on YouTube. Nevertheless, is there anyone who would like to create another video of me doing what teachers make with their shaky phone? Hold your hand up if you would like to videotape what teachers make. Okay, you're totally allowed to. Okay. When I get to the next poem, why don't you come here and stand right in the front, okay? Because the last thing we need is somebody in the back, like holding up a phone, and it's vertical video too. You know? Raising test scores. This is not part of the poem, this is just me talking, but it's hard to tell the difference, I know. Bang your hands together if you are a music teacher. Thank you for coming. Thank you. And put your hands together if you are an art teacher. And let's hope this is not met with crickets. Where are my dance teachers? Okay. And are there drama teachers out there? Okay, this is for you. Raising test scores. Praise be to the music teachers and the teachers of art and dance, though chances are there is only one poor fool in the entire school, one brave and tired soul, splattered paint on her smock and hands, one scarfed sylph waltzing the halls, one sunglass-wearing cool cat spending every lunch at his piano because the kid with the gin mother has discovered he loves the upright bass, that he can somehow face the world, be more upright and with a stronger bass if he can play for an hour or two every day. Praise be to the canvas and the palette that transforms the black mascara back into a girl, or the sheer grace that clings to the boy like tears, to the musical scales that sing in the key of math, and to the dark rooms where the symbols of great literature are exposed and finally fixed in the mind. Praise be to every art that jolts the soul's skeleton and makes the bones rattle. If you cut funding for the arts, you have already lost the battle. Thank you. Thank you. Or if you slash the budget for the National Endowment for the Arts. So I'm at the Q&A, which Mike Lawrence said I should call the Q&A. I said, that's dumb. I'm totally using that. Okay. Here's one from three days ago. My students love, I don't know how she knew to do this, Danielle Bridge. Danielle Bridge, are you in the audience? My students love reading verse novels. Would you ever consider writing one? I would love to write a verse novel. What inspired you to write poems about teaching and education? That is, you write about what you know, that's what I know. I know from teaching, I know about love, dogs, sex, pirates, the usual things. But I love the moment that a light bulb goes on over a kid's head. That's why I write about that. Can I show you my socks, Tom Whalen? How did you know that I was wearing colors? Yes, I wear, that's my one sartorial curiosity. I wear colorful socks. Jeff Palmquist says, Taylor Mali, the opposite of an antagonist. Q17, ask Taylor M. Jeff, that's not a question. Diane says, what hair gel do you use? Yeah, she's totally serious. I guess it's obvious that I'm using product in my hair, right? I use wax, a type of hair wax, and it is, I can't remember, I don't remember. Are you publishing these poems? Where can somebody find them? The new poems that I'm reading, I'll tell you they're new and they're not published yet. I'm working on a collection called Late Father, about my own late father, who's been dead now for 27 years, and also about becoming a father late, relatively late in life. I'm going to be 52 at the end of this month, and I have a 2-year-old, and one on the way, I think I'm allowed to say now. Late father, though, my book, What Teachers Make, in Praise of the Greatest Job in the World, is published by Penguin, and my 3 poetry books are published by Write Bloody, but Late Father, Write Bloody has not accepted Late Father yet, so I'm still looking for a publisher for my 4th collection of poetry. Totally Like Whatever is a fave. You say we've become the most aggressively inarticulate generation. Is that still true? Totally Like Whatever is a poem I wrote that makes fun of the interrogative tone that has crept into even declarative sentences. I tend to, because people don't think I'm a nerd just because I've noticed this. This is just word on the street. I'm just inviting you to join me on the bandwagon of my own uncertainty. I'll tell you what's funny. I recite that poem for young students and they don't, yeah, I'm totally listening to you. I don't understand why the adults are laughing. That poem and a poem I have called Like Lily, Like Wilson, ostensibly about a girl who cannot get through a sentence without saying like. Not as a verb, not as a preposition, but like a comma, like she couldn't and I made my classroom a like-free zone, and she could not speak for days. I'll read that one if I have time. And young kids today feel like I'm making fun of their generation, and I have to tell them, I wrote that poem in 1995. I was making fun of my own generation, and I felt that if I did a good enough job, I could eradicate the use of the word like. And obviously I failed. Can you get a selfie with me? Yes. Anaheim in the house, Julie Klinkenberg. Not a question, Julie, that is not a question. Okay, that's enough. You people are not, you know what, teachers, we don't follow directions, do you? Snehal Bhakta said, awesome quote by Taylor Mali, can you love the work that must be done? Also not a question, but that is the most recent line that I added to that poem, so I'm glad you like it. Who was my most favorite teacher and why? In 5th grade, I had a teacher named Dr. Joseph D'Angelo. He was a PhD, he sang opera, and he was a black belt in some kind of karate, and we thought that was the coolest thing ever, and he could beat you up if you didn't do what he said, and I'll tell you why, all of my favorite teachers, the one thing they had in common is that they loved me. And it is not important if your students like you. What is important is that you love them even if you don't like them. Jessica, I do not have a recommendation about where you can go to dinner. Shannon Charles says, was there a comma between sex and pirates? Shannon, if you don't know about sex pirates, I can't help you. I'm sorry. Snehal Bhakta again said, did you know that autocorrect changes hashtag AskTaylorM to either adaption, aspiration, or admiration? What's your favorite? What's my favorite drink? Depends on the time of day, but I order what's called a depth charge or a red eye, black coffee with a double shot of espresso poured into it. And I love Malbec, but I love IPA, the hoppier the better. Somebody said, Jen Roberts said, I have a quarter for you, but I forgot. A quarter from 1965, Jen? Is that what it is? Are you here? Oh. Don't! I collect quarters from 1965, which is the year of my birth, and also the oldest quarters in circulation, because in '64 they were made out of silver. It's a carpe diem thing. I want you to, you already have my Twitter hashtag, but I would love for you to follow me on Instagram, and here's why. Because I take part in what is called the Poem a Day Challenge in April, which is National Poetry Month, as you know. And every day I'm going to post a new poem to social media, and they are not all good. And I think that could be instructive to your students if you shared them. For those of you who and that's kind of big, isn't it? But it's hard to read correctly. This poem is called Fan Mail or Hate Molly. And it comes from a tweet that I got a couple months ago that I misread because I thought it said, Dear Mr. Molly, I hope one day I will get to see you live. What? Oh my goodness. What did I do? 2 years ago when my son Aragorn, that's not his name, but that's what I call him publicly. When my son Aragorn was born, it's April, he was born in January. I've got a 3-month-old baby, but I have to do a poem every day. So I wrote a lot of haiku about diapering, or haiku. Haiku number 8. I understand now why you were crying so loud. It makes sense to me. Haiku number 9. How can such a child with such a magical smile be so full of it? Here's a poem I posted in 2014 on Facebook that caused one of those mile-long comment threads where people are screaming from both sides. I'll read it if you can't. When white people talk about other white people as if they aren't one of us, as if they're one of the good ones, they do it because they cannot bear to speak of sin and injustice and in the same breath say we and our and us. White people, this is not about you, is so much easier to shout when you are white than it is to say or even whisper loud enough that maybe only you can hear, white people, this is not about us. I noticed just yesterday for the first time that I do exactly what I am criticizing white people of doing in this poem. Otherwise, I would have said, when white people talk about other white people, we do it. As, you know, uh-oh. Poet, heal thyself, right? I was having a Kiefer Sutherland day. Sometimes I post disturbing pictures. Sometimes I post cute pictures and then do disturbing things with them. And sometimes I make videos of Aragorn like this slide. This is a 30-second video.
This is my ninja training class. This is not a time for dancing. Not a time for dancing. It's learning how to jump, and then it's learning how to seek cover. Everybody in the hole, quick, seek cover. I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. Then if zombies came, I would climb out of the donut, and I would walk along this precipice, and I would find a staircase, and I would go down the staircase, and then I'd turn around, and I would come right back up, and I'd be okay.
Thank you. All of the questions that I did not answer publicly, I will answer tonight after a couple of glasses of something. So the answers get interesting. The last reason I want you to follow me on Instagram is that I am developing a new product called Metaphor Dice, because a metaphor is really nothing more than an equation between two nouns with an adjective perhaps thrown in. It's going to be a prompt tool. It's going to be a classroom discussion tool. You'll be able to roll 3 dice and get things like, I was born a small town curse, or the heart is a midnight moon, or my mother was a drunk birthday party clown. What's that? Oh, I never did What Teachers Make. I'm sorry, yes. No vertical video. Is that what I think it is? Come here. This is what teachers make, or objection overruled, or if things don't work out, you can always go to law school. As performed at the Q conference on March 15th, 2017, in Palm Springs, California. He says, the problem with teachers is, what's a kid going to learn from someone who decided that his best option in life was to become a teacher? I'm sorry. He reminds the other dinner guests that it's true what they say about teachers. Those who can do, and those who can't teach. I'm sorry. I decide to bite my tongue instead of his, and resist the urge to remind the other dinner guests that it's also true what they say about lawyers, because we're eating after all, and this is supposed to be polite conversation. I mean, you're a teacher, Taylor. Come on, be honest. What do you make? And I wish he hadn't done that. Asked me to be honest, because you see, I've got this little policy in my classroom about honesty and ass-kicking, which is, if you ask for it, then I have to let you have it. You want to know what I make? I make kids wonder. I make them question. I make them criticize. I make them apologize and mean it. I make parents tremble in fear when I call home at around dinner time. Hi, this is Mr. Molly. I hope I haven't called at a bad time. I just wanted to talk to you about something that your son said today in class to the biggest bully in the grade. He said, hey, why don't you leave that kid alone? I still cry sometimes, don't you? And that was the noblest act of courage that I have ever seen. I make parents see their children for who they are and who they can be. You want to know what I make? I make kids wonder. I make them question. I make them criticize. I make them apologize and mean it. I make them write, and then I make them read. I make them spell. Definitely beautiful, define nightly, be-a-utiful, until they will never misspell either one of those words again. I make them show all their work in math class and then hide it on their final drafts in English. I make them realize that if you've got this, then you follow this. And if somebody ever tries to judge you based on what you make, you give them this. here. I mean, you give them this, here. Let me break it down for you so you know what I say is true. Teachers make a difference. Now, what about you? Thank you very much. That's probably the worst reading of what teachers make I've done in a long time. Thank you very much. Do you want to hear a poem about... No, never mind. Mike said in his introduction that he thought galvanize was a great word, and I disagree. So I'm going to read this poem before I do my final poem, my final piece. And this is called Pity the Package Left on Lover's Lane as a Courtesy, a poem in celebration of the 4 words my siblings and I despised as children, written with the help of a list of the most hated words in the English language. The one word that has had a lock on the #1 position of most hated word in English is, as you all probably know, moist. I went online to write this poem about the 4 words that me and my siblings hated, and I used this list of the 100 most hated words in English. This is called Pity the Package Left as a Courtesy on Lover's Lane. At the top of every list of hated words in English squats moist, like a bulbous yolk of phlegmy curds that has oozed through your panties and smeared the crotch of your slacks like some sort of yeasty ointment. Moist is, without question, the most impactful splurge in everyone's verbal pouch. But there are others that are almost as bad, at least to certain people. Certain words that certain people cannot have uttered in their presence without cringing in disgustation, irregardless of the meaning of the word. For me, that word was always pity, which I first heard in a Paddington Bear story that my mother read aloud. "'Tis a pity," she said, and I ran from the room, a scream, gurgling, and finally ejaculating from my jowls. I despise pity with a hatred that is nuclear. Don't get me wrong. I am capable of feeling the aforementioned word. I just hate the sound of it, like my sister Kate, who hated courtesy, which we would, of course, try to wheedle into stories like curdled milk delivered with a curtsy, or worse, courteous, the adjective. Why are adjectives more disgusting than their nounal forms? I offer as examples only nounal, beauteous, penicular, and diarrheal. Not because I cannot think of others, but because I just spit up in the back of my mouth, and the viscosity of my mucus has become moist and pungent. For my brother Peter, the word was 2 words, a place, Lover's Lane. He couldn't stand to hear of it, so we said it to him all the time, my sisters and I, whenever we passed one. "Oh, look, Lover's Lane," we would say. Or we offered up Lover's Lane as a place he might want to schedule a date with a lovely lady for a little bit of necking or heavy petting. Lover's Lane? No? 'Tis a pity then, for 'tis beauteous. But my oldest sister, Adair, had no word she could not bear to hear, which just wasn't fair. So we decided that she was lying, and that the word she hated was package. We insisted she had despised it all her life, but secretly, so as not to give us the verbal kryptonite we sought. And so we would scream at her, package. And at first she would just smile and say she didn't hate the word package. We screamed again, even louder, and soon she became upset and protested, "Stop saying that word, I don't hate it." So after that, we continued until she started to cry, which, because we loved her, was all we ever wanted in the first place. Thank you. This is my last piece. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, Mike. I don't mean that as a joke. I mean, this is my last piece. I'm about to be arrested. I wouldn't call this a poem yet. This is called What I Hope This Has and Has Not Been. Since I am a fan of regularly gathering together with other teachers, administrators, policymakers, and support staff, but no students, in order to do what must be done, be it sharing stories or commiserating or drinking heavily, and generally relaxing, unwinding, regenerating, taking stock, fortifying, and cross-pollinating, I sure hope that that is what this has been this last hour, 50 minutes. And although it probably would have been wise to bring in, for the edification of all, an expert on education or an insightful thinker on pedagogy and policy who might, through a mixture of lecture and a truly transcendent PowerPoint presentation, help everyone become better educators, I know for a fact that that is not what this has been, because I am not that guy. Mike Lawrence could have hired that guy, but she was probably too busy or too expensive, and so they got me instead. And sure, yes, granted, I taught for 9 years in the classroom, but that was 17 years ago. And although I absolutely loved teaching, and I left it with great reluctance, the truth is I am probably a better performance poet than I ever was a teacher. So in recent years, I've become especially careful not to misrepresent myself as some kind of super teacher. I am not a super teacher. I've got stories that make me sound as if I were, but that has more to do with the way I tell stories. However, I go to a lot of teaching conferences like this one, and I do get to share the stage and sit in on PowerPoint presentations and cross-pollinate with other super teachers. And they have amazing, great ideas for how things can be done better. And they are often filled with doom and gloom about the profession, and it's easy to understand why. Educators are faced with more challenges today than ever. Budgets keep getting cut, students keep arriving to school hungry and fragile, and sometimes the least qualified people somehow still end up in positions of great authority where they have the nerve to ask, "Now where do I find the pencils?" As if anyone who had ever spent any time as a teacher wouldn't already know you have to buy your own goddamn pencils. Just like sometimes you will have to buy your students pencils and breakfast and shoes. But it's true, we do get stuck in our teaching patterns as a survival mechanisms, and we miss things sometimes, and we fail our students sometimes. All of that happens. And yet, despite that, there is still joy to be had in the classroom. And not just in the things that students write in their essays, like Magellan circumcised the world with a 100-foot clipper. Or, I love the sweet smell of incest coming from my sister's room. When you watch a light bulb go on over a kid's head when he finally gets it or she has a great idea, it pierces your heart with joy. And who knows, joy might just be the key ingredient. After all, it's hard to measure. We don't know how to teach it. No one studies it. Politicians are afraid to talk about it because they don't understand it. But let's not overlook it. Let's not sweep joy under the rug. Let's come together to praise it and celebrate it and help each other find it. And that, right there, is what I hope this has been and this conference can be. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great year. Go in poetry. Let poetry bless your lives.
Thank you.